Joining us now, 3rd District Republican Congressman, North Carolina, Walter Jones. Congressman, good to have you with us, sir.
Well, John, thank you. And it sounds like JoJo is an excellent baseball player, is all I can say.
Well, he's trying to walk in Walter Jones' basketball shoes. They used to call Walter
No,
Jones.
Don't go that far.
Do you know for my audience, you know what Walter Jones' nickname was at Hargrave Academy when he played the shooting guard? They called him the Golden Arm. Imagine that.
Well,
Mike, the Golden Arm.
I'm more interested in JoJo's future than my past.
Let's get to politics. Oh, my goodness. Let's start with Jared Kushner. Okay, look, Congressman, we got a special investigator. You wanted that. Okay, I'm for that. We got that going on with Mueller. So what did Kushner do? So after Trump wins in the transition team, he's contacting diplomats. One of them happened to be allegedly the Russian ambassador, talking about a back channel. This is no different than anybody's done. Look, there's nothing here. What's the deal with this?
Well, John, I don't know. That's why I have for months. I've been on your show. You already mentioned that. I've been for a special independent commission or a special prosecutor. I want the facts to come out, whatever they might be. And with all this is becoming is just political folly, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. The shows is probably 90% of what they carry is the Russian issue. Let's take it to a higher level, like we did with 9/11, and let an independent commission of non-political people, meaning elected people, being on that commission. I think this thing is going to go on and on and on. And we're not doing anything in Washington to serve the people. We do have bills introduced. We do have little debates on the floor, suspension bills. But the big bills that Mr. Trump talked about, from the health care, of course, that's passed the House. Then you're talking about tax relief. Then you're talking infrastructure. I have no strong belief that we're going to get there before the fall, really.
Okay, so it's going to be a while, and probably, well, I think you're right. It's going to be in the fall, probably the winter of 2007. Hopefully we can get this thing with some conclusion by the end of 2017. So this is not hanging over our head as we go into 2018. So we'll hope for the best.
I hope so.
On that. Okay, I want to get to a couple of things getting around right now. Donald Trump yesterday finally on Twitter calling for the end of the 60-vote cloture rule, telling Mitch McConnell that he really needs to get rid of that. As you know, sir, that is a man-made rule in the U.S. Senate. It's not part of the Constitution. It's not how the Founding Fathers set it up. It's not part of the way they envision a government working. Many of us believe that for both parties, it's just a way to hide behind an apron and not be accountable to things. What say you?
Well, I've been in the House and not the Senate. I don't know the history. As you said, it's a man-made rule, and I understand that, but I don't know what the justification when they made the rule was, and I don't know enough about the Senate. I'm going to be very honest with you and your listeners. I have to leave that up to Mitch McConnell and the Democrats to decide what the rules are. We have our own rules in the House. Mm-hmm. That's the privilege that the House has. If they're the majority party, they can write the rules, and the same thing happens in the Senate. So I think it's going to be a matter of whether the Republicans in the Senate and the Democrats in the Senate think that this is the time to review and to change. I have no idea.
Okay, let's get to the House now. GOP, the Republicans pushing a new minimum sentencing laws, a debate over criminal justice reform taking a head-spinning turn in the Capitol. The Republican leadership is now going in a way that is going to increase minimum sentencing laws, mainly for those that are here legally, and the legislation, including Kate's Law, that measure named for Catherine Stenley, the 32-year-old woman killed by the illegal immigrant in San Francisco that was deported and kept coming back. You know, I have not been in favor of, as you know, Congressman, of these mandatory sentencing laws because I think we just got too many people in jail, and a lot of them are for minor offenses. like possession of a certain amount of marijuana, and it happens to be the third time, 3 strikes, you're out, and these people are doing 10 to 15. This one, though, more geared towards those that are in the country illegally. How do you reconcile this, and do you have a position on it?
Well, I'm glad to say that I think it's time to have this type of debate. The world that we live in, known as America, is changing so quickly. It's hard to keep up with all the different issues. So I think the time is right to have the debate. I have not come to a conclusion myself because I'm not on the Judicial Committee. I'm going to have to listen very carefully to the debate. I'm not an attorney, and I'm going to have to make my decision on the debate and what I hope is in the best interest of the people of the 3rd District. I've been very outspoken about Afghanistan. We might get to that. 80 people have been killed today in the Wild West, known as Afghanistan. But when it comes to the legal issues, I will really have to yield my decision to the facts of what the bill will do and how it will impact on our judicial system, but also how it would impact on the American people.
All right, sir, let's get to Afghanistan. Your colleague in the U.S. Senate, former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine, Democrat from Virginia, up for re-election in 2018. He has been one of your biggest allies in demanding that before we send any more troops anywhere, that we get a new AUMF, we get a declaration of war, Congress gets involved in some way. Tim Kaine now doubling down on that call the other day. As you said, another 80 people killed in Afghanistan. There's a proposal on the table for the president to consider another massive troop engagement there. Where are we? I know that you have called for the administration coming to Congress to make a formal request. Where are we on this whole thing, sir?
Well, John, we're going to know probably in the next 3 or 4 days because Mr. Trump said that he would make a decision when he returned back from his overseas trip, and I'm with Senator Kaine. I mean, I do not understand why Congress has abdicated its responsibility, and I blame Paul Ryan in the House for not allowing the House. I can't speak for the Senate, but the House needs to have a debate. That's why we did a press conference last Wednesday, as well attended by Republicans and Democrats, and we spoke out calling on Mr. Ryan to let us have a debate. John Garamendi, and we've been joined by others. John Garamendi and I put in H.R. 1666. Any of your listeners can go online and look at the bill. It's very simple. It says it's time that Congress, after 16 years, has a debate on what is our future role in Afghanistan. And in that bill, I'm going to read this very quickly. I quote General Chuck Krulak, 31st Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, and he has stated, and I quote, attempting to find a true military and political answer to the problems in Afghanistan would take decades, not years, and drain our nation of precious resources, with the most precious being our sons and daughters. Simply put, the United States cannot solve the Afghan problem, no matter how brave and determined our troops are. I mean, that says it all. It is the graveyard of empires, and all we're doing is digging our grave by staying there.
I hope the president decides not to go with General McMaster's recommendation on these additional troops. But let's say that he does. Let's say he says, okay, I'm going to go with you on this. I'm going to go with the generals. And how many troops did McMaster ask for? What was it? Do you know offhand?
I want to say 13 to 15,000.
Right. That's right. 15,000. Okay.
It is a tremendous amount. We've already got about 8,000 over there.
Right. So that's 150% in the troop engagement we have. Let's say the president, Congressman, says, okay, I'm going to go with you guys on this. Let's go ahead and do that. And he doesn't go to Congress. Right now, he can't send them because we're operating under the old AUMF. So let's say he makes that decision and doesn't say, well, I have to go to Congress first. What will your alliance do in order to make him come to the House of Representatives?
Well, if we don't have the support of the leader of the House, Paul Ryan, there's not much we can make that we can force the president to come to Congress. That's why we're so frustrated, John, because it is our constitutional responsibility to debate whether we send your son or your daughter to fight for this country. And I blame the leadership, going back to John Boehner and now it's Paul Ryan, for not allowing the House to have this debate. And I think it is morally wrong. I think it, on a constitutional position, I think it's wrong that we cannot meet our constitutional responsibility of debating whether we send our young men and women to fight for this country.
So if Paul Ryan does nothing, then you guys can jump up and down and have all the press conferences that you want. But if Paul Ryan does nothing, then Trump can just send them, right? I mean, that's it. Decision made.
Well, I think there are some legal areas that we can proceed in, but I don't know, because what really has always frustrated me is that the federal courts have always ruled against members of Congress and say they do not have standing in this issue of forcing a policy debate on war because we have the power of the purse. Well, that is a joke and a farce. The leadership controls the purse, and they'll get enough votes to pass bills that put more money in there for Afghanistan. So what we're trying to look at, depending on what the president does over the next few days, is from a legal standpoint, what would be a new effort in trying to get into the court system to say we have a constitutional right to force a debate. And we're very limited. I don't mind telling you, we're very limited when it comes to policy debate on war.
So really you can't do anything other than go to the media and try to make a stink about it and come on shows like mine or CNN or Fox News if they'll take you. But really, and even if Paul Ryan said, okay, well, I want to go ahead and do this, and I want the president to come to Congress and make his case legally, because the administration is going to say, no, we don't have to do that. We're still operating under the 2001 AUMF.
Well, what this bill would do would be to basically repeal the 2001. If this bill passed, and again, I don't think the odds of it passing are great, but as you said, we've got to build national support for it, and we're trying to do that now, and we'll try even harder when we go back after the break.
See, look,
what we're trying to do is get the press, the national papers to come out in favor of a new debate. We're doing everything we can do. Being on your show is a great help. Thank you for that. But, no, it's very frustrating because young men and women are still getting their legs blown off and they're still dying. And it's almost like America's, not engaged. And that's our fault in Congress.
Well, we've become like immune to the whole thing because there's no draft, all right? So people are volunteering. But here's the thing. Ryan will never do this. Your leader will never do this. Because even if that vote came up, even if he forced that vote, which is on whether or not to rescind the old AUMF of 2001, which is 3 presidents ago, even to do that, people would have to go on the record. And
That's
so
right.
they don't want to go on the record. They don't want to be accountable for the job they were elected to do. So this thing will never go anywhere because they don't want to be accountable, Congressman Walter Jones. That's the problem. It's the same thing with the 60-vote cloture rule in the Senate. Why be accountable to the people when you can simply hide behind mama's apron, not vote, not take a stand, not come down one way or the other? That's why this thing is never going to see the light of day, because leadership has cowardice. And so the number one, you've got 2 objectives in the House: pass a budget and authorize war. You can't do either of them because leadership throws it away.
Frustration, you articulated extremely well, and I will associate with your comments because that's exactly where I am too. Nothing has frustrated me more than to know that I have the responsibility of sending a mom and dad's son or daughter to die for this country, and we never debate it. It's absolutely unacceptable. I think it's a sin, to be honest with you.
Does anybody have any idea out there what General McMaster plans to do with another 15,000 young men and women going to that hellhole Afghanistan? Does anybody have any idea like what we get out of that, why we're going, what the objective is, how do we win? Does anybody even know what this is? No, No one knows. No one can articulate it. I mean, at least in Vietnam, and my father was anti-communist, blue-collar worker, at least my father could tell me, we're going to Vietnam to stop Soviet expansionism. We're drawing a line in the sand. Okay, might not agree with it. That's a reason, right? Why are we going to Afghanistan? Anybody know? No, there's no answer. No one knows.
And John, real quickly, it is so chaotic that you got the former leader of Afghanistan, Karzai, cutting deals with the Russians. He's been meeting with the Russians to get them to come back to Afghanistan and join the Taliban, who just blew up 80 people. I mean, it's almost like we are funding. We're like dead zombies walking around talking about Congress and keep funding all this going to Afghanistan, with so much of the money going to Afghanistan ends up in the coffers of the Taliban so they can buy weapons and IEDs to blow up Americans. It's just the craziest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. I agree with Senator Kaine and hope he'll keep speaking out. I know he will. He doesn't need to hear that from me, but I'm going to keep speaking out and raise hell about it.
Well, he needs to, Senator Kaine on this issue needs to really raise some Cain, no pun intended, on this, raise some hell, because you're exactly right. Nobody knows why we're in there, why our kids are getting blown up, and what we're going to do with 15,000. Why not 150,000? Why not 300,000? Why not 2,000? No one knows. No one knows what the objective is. But, hey, it's just a perpetuation of war, more troops, supplies, defense contractors, the military-industrial complex, more retired generals going on TV, you know, showing you maps on Fox News, making $15,000 a month. Look, it is what it is. We go to war. They make a lot of money. Our kids come home in body bags, and a lot of people profit off it, and nobody's sanctioning it.
Well, John, that's why I appreciate you being so outspoken on this issue as well as other issues. And I can assure you that those in Congress that are going to keep raising Cain about it, and we're going to do everything we can to force a debate on this issue. There are many, many issues facing us in America, but again, after 16 years in Afghanistan, almost $1 trillion spent, almost 2,000 Americans killed, over 20,000 wounded, and what do we have to show for
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. And the fact that now Karzai, who was the great hope of democracy, is now negotiating with the Russians and the Taliban. All these people care about is themselves, their own pockets. I mean, it's incredible how we got involved in this thing and why we're still there. But you think about what the Congressman Walter Jones just said. 16 years, nothing. Now we want to send another 15,000 of our young men and women, and without having Congress authorize it. Unbelievable. We're out of time. I want to thank Congressman Walter Jones,
you, my friend,
for being with us. House District number 3, North Carolina. Walter Jones, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, my friend. Bye-bye.